That's why in the book I write,
Yeah.
that is the other thing I write about, that there's no shame in not completing a book.
Yeah.
You don't have to prove it to anybody that, oh, I've read this author just because they've won this award and that award. No, it doesn't matter. You might be reading an author which has won no award, but you know what? The award is that you're enjoying that book.
Yeah.
And that's what matters. So I
Also
started
for
looking at
parents,
very different kind of books from there.
Also for parents, there's just going to page 64. There's this part about children who might have a challenge reading, whether the child is clinically diagnosed with dyslexia or not, but there might be resistance to reading which could be for various reasons. You don't need to get affected or obsessed about making them, forcibly pushing them to read. There are books which can be read even if they're not completing the books. There's also part 4 which is in 65, recommendation 4, that there's children with physical disabilities, and now we have books which you can read. So and then there are people with cognitive disabilities. For them also there are lots of recommendations here as to how to go about it if you're finding your children or your sibling finding this problem with various things. And it says that go back to the books that you read when you were a child. That's another thing which I found very interesting. I've done that. I've gone back to, sometimes I feel silly, I don't tell people, but I go back to an Enid Blyton or something like that. Not because of anything, but it's just that one day I see it lying in my shelf and say, utha leti hu. What is it? Because, it might be something that somebody was said that, oh, Enid Blyton was racist. Do you remember that period where it was said about her? So I said, okay, पढ़ के देखती हूँ यार, मेरे था कि नहीं, or
And what did you think?
I didn't find it. I didn't find it racist.
But also because we are all cancelling people so fast and so quickly, and we're so quick to judge.
Yeah.
But every period has its own, and that's the beauty about books. So I always say that it's not just the world that I'm traveling. See, for me, the beauty about reading was that I always say that was the cheapest way to travel for me. We came from very limited budget in our family. There were other needs that were there, so we didn't travel. But the books took me everywhere. They took me all over the world. And you know what I say? It's not just all over the world. They're taking me into past, into future. They're taking me on different planets, whatever that imagination is. But I'm traveling the universe with books, the fastest and the cheapest way to do it. So in the
But
same.
did you judge co-stars who had never read a book in their life probably, who were like, to the manner born, सब कुछ आराम से आ जाता है. You had to work for your living. You had to read to understand what it was to travel. They traveled when they were probably 10 or 9.
For people who have that advantage, there are different things that are disadvantageous for them. So there's always a pros and the cons to it. So there are certain challenges that I always feel that if you face challenges at the beginning of your life, you're young, you have a lot of way to, it's better than facing them later on. Because if you have not learned certain lessons in the early part of your life, you're definitely going to learn them later, and it's going to be harder to deal with them. So at that time, maybe when I was younger, I would feel, oh my God, somebody has it so easy. But then as you grow, you realize that, you know what, maybe it was better that way because I dealt with those then, and that made me stronger, and I could deal with certain things later.
Do subscribe to the ANI Clips channel to get shorter versions of this podcast. Click here to watch the full episode.